AI is everywhere. People are using it to replace workforce.
I would say now with AI, it feels really similar in that it's that next piece of technology that everyone's adopting. You can't ignore it. I would say it's this new piece of technology that is ramping up really quickly. And that can definitely feel scary when it feels like, okay, now our computers are doing all of the thinking. Like, what is our use going to be?
How do you personally distinguish between traditional AI and what people now call agentic AI?
Traditional AI is reactive, right? You prompt it and it responds. And agentic AI,
Do you think AI would perform in the cryptocurrency space? Because is there any adoption right now of AI in crypto?
I think it's definitely possible, right? If you look at how AI accesses information on the back end, like underneath, it is a lot of different calls out to different data sources. As long as that data can be accessed in a fast, modern way.
Welcome to the Bricks and Banks podcast, where real estate meets real wealth. Whether you're building from the ground up or stacking your paper to the ceiling, Steph breaks down property power plays and money moves you can act on. From first-time buyers to seasoned investors, this podcast is your blueprint for financial freedom through real estate, business, and investment. Subscribe now. It's time to build your future. This is Bricks and Banks with Steph.
And we are live. Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of the Bricks and Banks podcast. And as we know it, we've been talking a lot about AI this year because AI is everywhere and it's not just fluff. People are making money with it. People are using it to replace workforce. People are using it to do things better, and we have an expert in the house today. So artificial intelligence, as we know it, is quickly becoming embedded in financial services. I mean, if not financial services, where else? So from fraud detection to trading to customer experience, institutions are now exploring agentic AI, systems that just analyze data but can make decisions and take action in real time. But there's a deeper question most leaders are not asking. If AI agents are making decisions in seconds, the infrastructure beneath them, is the data infrastructure beneath them built to keep up? Because no matter how advanced the model can be, if data is slow or fragmented or inaccessible, intelligence simply cannot perform. Today, we are unpacking the data infrastructure gap in agentic AI and why AI real-time systems are becoming strategic necessity in finance. We're looking at what separates organizations experimenting from AI to those who are truly building for scale. Today, I'm not doing this alone. I have an amazing guest on the pod. So joining me all the way from US is Ashley Vassell. She's a senior product manager in the innovation lab at Hydrolix. Ashley brings deep experience across cloud computing, distributed systems, and building high-performance data platforms that power real-world decision-making. So this is a practical conversation. We are not just here for hype, and we're going to be learning a lot. So grab a notepad, grab your ChatGPT, and let's get into it. Hi, Ashley. It's great to have you on the pod today.
Hi, Stephanie. It is great to meet you, and I'm super excited to be here.
Nice. So, I mean, before we get into the whole buzz of AI, like, how did you get here? Is this what you've always wanted to do, or you've just lived different phases of your life?
Yeah, so I've always been like since graduating college, I've always been in the tech space. When
Nice.
when I graduated, the big thing was cloud, right? That's when cloud
Yeah.
was first launching, everyone was migrating to cloud. And I would say now with AI, it feels really similar in that it's that next piece of technology that everyone's adopting. You can't ignore it. You've really got to figure it out and figure out how it can help your business. So it kind of feels like my career is kind of coming full circle in that, when I started, there was this really exciting new technology. And now, 10, 11 years down the line, here I am again. So, yeah. just I guess I'm following all the big trends.
Yeah, and you're obviously women in tech, you're pushing the STEM out there. So how did you get here? Like, what was your background for you, like growing up? What were the things that led you to this point?
Yeah, so growing up, I was always interested in technology. I decided early on, like even before college, I was like, I want to study something related to tech. And
Mm,
I initially decided on computer science, and I was like, all right, I'm going to code. That's the way of the future.
yeah.
I went to college. I went to a school called Rensselaer Polytechnic. It's an engineering school in upstate New York. So very
Wow.
focused on engineering. And when I was there, I learned that there was so many different areas of technology, not just computer science. And so that's really what sort of piqued my interest in really staying with the tech space. After college, I went straight into working in tech. I started at, a giant company, GE. Most people have heard of it. And so that was a great place to start my career. Uh,
Definitely.
just with so many folks that have been in the industry a long time, it was a great space to learn from people.
Mm,
And since then, I really enjoyed my time at a larger company, but then decided, hey, I'd like to try out some startups, right? And really
yeah.
give myself a chance to learn and to grow and to get more opportunities than you can sometimes as someone earlier in their career at a large company. So that's what's really led me to the sort of startup space that I'm in now. I found that I can own products, like as a product manager, I can own products a lot more
Yeah.
like end to end, and that's been really nice. So, I think it's just been different seasons that have kind of gotten me to where I am today, but I think it really just comes down to a continued sense of curiosity and wanting to figure out what's going on in the tech world.
Yeah, you're a techie. Like, did you ever get any pushback growing up? Like, oh, you're such a nerd. You should do girly things. Did you ever get any of that
Yeah.
pushbacks?
Yeah, my parents definitely did not understand, right? Like, they were not,
Yeah.
very great with technology or anything like that, so they definitely
Yeah.
didn't understand, my drive there, but they were always very supportive.
Mm,
They've always known that working in tech or being interested in tech is a space that's gonna lead me to have a successful career path and a career life. That's something all parents want, so ultimately, they definitely supported me, but they were definitely like, how do you even know about this stuff? How do you know that you wanna do it? Honestly, it's a great question. I think it was just something that, came to me one day. Of course, I was like a
mm.
typical child, and I had crazier dreams when I was younger, right? Like wanting to be a gymnast and an astronaut and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's nice to see that you didn't just wake up being a nerd.
Yeah,
You basically evolved into it, and yes, you're
yeah,
in the right
about yeah.
space. And it's helpful to see that it's not just guys that can take on the tech world. You ladies are crushing it in there. So when it comes to AI, I know AI is the rave right now. Everyone is like, just slap AI and whatever you're doing. You sound serious. So
Yeah.
when you think about AI, how can you like demystify it to people? Some people are scared of it because they're like, oh, it's taking our jobs, it's gonna replace the human force. But what are your thoughts concerning AI when you think about it and in the bigger picture?
Yeah, so, I would say I was even one of those people that were very skeptical at first, right? It's this new piece of technology that is ramping up really quickly. Like you said, folks are just applying it wherever they can. And that can definitely feel scary when it feels like, okay, now our computers are doing all of the thinking, like what is our use going to be? But I think working in tech and actually seeing what comes along with this rapid evolution, you see
Mm,
that it's not just that these computers are fully doing thinking on their own, right? Someone is having to train this AI. Someone's having to review
mhm.
everything it's doing. And so I no longer see it as something that is a potential threat, but I see it as an
Okay.
opportunity for many of us to sort of up-level our skills, right? Learn to
Yeah.
work with it, learn to guide it, And with that, I feel like you'll also find yourself becoming more valuable in the workforce because AI is not going to go away, right? It's here to stay. I don't think any of us can really say what its final form will look like or where it's really truly going to be in like 3 to 5 years. But I think what
Yeah.
we can do is, get on board, get used to it, find out how to up level your skills so that you are supporting this area that tech and honestly outside of tech, right? That the world
Yeah.
is moving towards.
Amazing. I like the way you explained it. You need to just like upskill yourself. Don't run away from it. Learn it
Mhm.
and apply it because at the end of the day, AI is here to make our lives easier. So when we talk about agentic AI, because I titled today's episode, Agentic AI is only as smart as its data. We're looking at the
Mhm.
infrastructure gap holding finance back. So when we talk about agentic AI, are we just talking about the ChatGPT agents or is there more to it?
Yeah, there's absolutely more to it. So, agentic AI it goes beyond just the AI assistants that we've come to know and love, like ChatGPT or Claude. It's really about a system of different pieces of AI that work together in
Yeah.
order to um, honestly take it to that next level. Like with
Mm-hmm.
traditional AI, it's a lot more reactive, right? You prompt it, it
Oh,
responds. You can think of a chatbot answering scripted questions or a model where you could give it your portfolio and it analyzes it and lets you know
mm,
that it's unbalanced or balanced. With
okay.
agentic AI, you're now looking at a system where it can, reason, plan, and execute real actions. So this is going just beyond sending a prompt in a chatbot window. Um, and really it goes into like the coordination of
Okay.
different AI models in the background all speaking to each other in order to actually take autonomous action.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. And do you have to train it that way or we already have the models built up as agentic AI?
So there are tons of foundational models. And these
Okay.
foundational models are like the ones that we commonly hear of, like
Mm,
Gemini from Google, ChatGPT is a foundational model. And these are models that are just sort of widely trained. They're trained on many
okay.
subjects. And so pretty much most use cases that you can think of, those
Okay.
models would be able to work. So a lot of the times the foundational models have done a lot of the training for you. You can also add a little bit more specific training for your domain, right? If you want your LLM or your AI to act more as a subject matter expert rather than a generalist, then that is where needing to train the model will come in, right? Using your specific data sets, your specific
Yeah.
use cases, that sort of thing.
Okay. And I love the way you shared your story, like how you started off at GE and you spent a lot of years growing from that place and evolving now into the startup space. And so when you look at how AI is being adopted in financial services, let's bring it back to the bank's part of the podcast. How do you personally distinguish between traditional AI and what people now call agentic AI, especially in the context of financial services?
Yeah, so even in financial services, there has
Yeah.
been rapid evolution in the AI space. And I think that distinction between, traditional and agentic comes down to one fundamental shift, which, is what I had sort of touched on before. So traditional AI is reactive, right? You prompt
Yeah.
it and it responds. And agentic AI takes it to the next level where the system can autonomously reason, plan, execute, and learn from its actions.
Yeah.
So if we use that same portfolio example, you could have one agent that is analyzing your current holdings, one that's
Mm-hmm.
looking at similar portfolios and how they're performing in the market, one that is developing a rebalancing strategy, and then a fourth one that actually executes based on all of the information it's getting from these other agents and then provides you a report back when it's done. So that key
Mm,
difference is that traditional AI just informs you. but agentic
Yes.
AI acts. And in financial services, that shift has, massive implications for how we think about, speed, oversight, accountability, you name it. There's huge shifts when we think about AI.
Yeah, and I understand that thinking about it at the top of my head, I'm seeing the advantages one could get from it. But in a high stakes environment like the financial services world, it can be also very risky. So how how is the adaptability in this area, especially when it comes to the risks involved? Because you're telling me that my AI will just go into my bank and just start
Yeah.
running investments on my behalf. What if it fails?
So this is a huge shift. And
Mm,
honestly, this is what is keeping risk officers up at night. When AI moves from just recommendations to acting, the accountability model fully changes. And the system making the decisions, the AI, can often feel like a black box. And it's never going to
yeah.
be acceptable to just say, I don't know why the AI did that, right? That's never going to be acceptable to a regulator or a customer that's been
Yes.
harmed. So, we have to think about what's at stake. An agent that autonomously denies loan applications without explainable reasoning, or one that, as you kind of gave the example, executes trades during,
Yeah.
let's say, volatile conditions before any human can intervene. These aren't hypotheticals. These are real scenarios that are being planned for. And that's exactly why, human oversight is essential. Whether you have someone above the loop, in the loop, however you want to say it, it remains essential to have, humans involved. And from a product perspective,
Yeah.
governance and transparency can't be afterthoughts. These have to be architected into systems from day one
Mm-hmm.
because, especially when it comes to financial services, you're not
Yeah.
just building for functionality, you're building for auditability, explainability, the ability to answer why did this happen after the fact. So it's not as simple as making a bad recommendation and you can correct that. A bad autonomous action is a liability that can cause true harm. So there's definitely a lot more that has to go into building these systems, especially in regulated environments like finance.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Can you share? I know that you work with a lot of these products and you've deployed a couple of them. So can you share like an experience on how the good parts? Let us talk about the good parts first. How the products you deployed helped to make the financial system better, and what's key issues were you trying to fix with the products you guys developed?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of positives when we're thinking about, bringing AI into these financial products. And I
Yeah.
think one of the biggest pros is that you're now working a lot closer with real-time data.
Mm-hmm.
The data that you need to make AI, accurate, fast, all of that means that you're working with the most up-to-date data. So your recommendations that may come from AI are likely to be a lot sharper than someone manually reviewing, this tons and tons of data. Or
Yeah.
at a minimum, it's going to be a lot faster. So when we're looking at financial services, I think the positives come from bringing in that vast amount of data and then
Mm,
also being able to train it in a way that it's not hallucinating, right? It's making real decisions based on what the product needs, but it's doing
okay.
that a lot more accurately because it has a lot more data. It can process a lot more data than us as humans can.
So when you say training the data in this context, are you talking about like using the real time user experience data to train the AI? Do you, is there a portion where the customer would have to agree to it that, oh, your activities are being monitored by AI to train it? Is there any such disclosure when you do that, when you deploy such products? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely important to be upfront about how a customer's data is being used. This is something
Mm,
that they should definitely be opting into, or,
yeah.
there might be an explicit sort of opt out. But,
Okay.
we're talking about, especially in financial services, really potentially sensitive data, right? We never want
Hmm.
to be wrongfully displaying any PII or things that go against regulations, yeah, you definitely have to be upfront with what you're doing with your customers' data if you're using it for training.
Okay, that makes sense. So, what do you think is the key problems these financial institutions are trying to solve by adopting agentic deployments? What are they what is the biggest problem they're trying to solve? Is it speed, is it quality, or is it just enhance efficiency?
I think there's a few things. So I think
Okay.
it's efficiency. It comes down to the speed of being able to deliver a service, right? If you've got an agentic loan processing system that can bring down the processing time from days to hours, that's a
Mm-hmm.
huge competitive advantage. It's a huge customer benefit. And we're starting to see that level of competitive advantage become existential, right? As AI is starting to hit these proof points where we now see, okay, it's not going away. It's only, it's only getting better. It's only moving to more and more industries.
Yeah.
You find that customers are demanding that, let's say the experiences they're seeing with their regular consumer items that AI is being deployed to, they're now wanting to see that with, every piece of software that they use. And so that pressure for, staying staying atop the competitive market is even more crucial than it has been previously. And then I think also on the efficiency side, businesses are always going to try and do more with less. And AI is a piece of technology that lends itself perfectly to that, right? Instead of having 10 analysts who have to sit together and put together reports,
Yeah.
you can have those 10 analysts um, instead reviewing reports that are coming out much faster from the AI, and they're still giving their insight, but they're not having to sit there and sort of
And
manually go through all of these
channel those
pieces.
reports.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you're seeing efficiency increases, you're seeing competitive pressures from customers. So
Oh,
I think there's a lot behind, what's kind of pushing AI into the financial services.
and I like the way you put it. And talking about financial service, I know financial services is very broad. We're talking investment banking, we're talking, well, real estate, it's financial services in one way. We're talking about loan management, we're talking about pensions and insurance companies. So which of these sectors like have in your experience have like the highest adoption of agentic AI right now? Is it the banking space? Is it asset and wealth management? Is it loan and mortgages or what?
I'm not sure that I can say exactly
Mm,
which branch is seeing the highest adoption right now. I did see
okay.
very recently from Moody's research that 70% of financial organizations are now looking to prioritize AI for risk and compliance. And so
Yeah.
this is moving beyond sort of that experimentation phase and bringing us into real deployment. So I think this is definitely something impacting all of those sectors that
Mm,
you just listed out. I will say, I
yes.
think I see more um, when it comes to AI products that are already out there. I see a lot in sort of the loan management space,
Yeah.
consumer banking in order to provide better user experiences, right? Instead of just talking to a scripted chatbot, they've now got, agentic chatbot experiences where they're actually looking at your account. They're looking at how you're spending money. They're looking at how you're investing and
Nice.
adjusting their recommendations based on real information. So it's definitely uh, spread.
Okay. That makes sense. So I know that we talked about how the human factor is more on a review end than doing the grind work. So in your experience, when organizations start giving AI agents more responsibility, what new pressures does that place on the data systems that weren't as critical as before? Because right now, the agents have to learn faster, they have to take in new data. So, what are the pressures you see in the data systems you have to now create new, how would I put it, new controls for.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. So, data is the fuel for AI, but one of the
Mm,
biggest misconceptions, I think, is that organizations tend to think that they can just point their AI agents at existing data sources and it's just going to work. The
mm,
reality is, most traditional data systems were not built for agentic use cases. So,
okay.
there are a few new pressures that weren't critical before.
Yeah.
First is going to be data quality. Many of these traditional systems store sample data or aggregated data to manage costs because storing data is very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And that has historically been fine for monthly reports, but an agent making real-time decisions needs real-time data. It needs, raw granular data. For example, if you have a fraud detection agent that's trained on sample transactions, it might miss exactly the edge case that it's facing right now
Yeah.
that matters most to it. Second is accessibility. So the AI can only respond as fast as the data that it can query, or it can only respond as fast as it can query the data. So traditional systems were built for batch processing, or they were built to tier the historical data into cold storage. And that creates a ton of latency for agents that essentially becomes a blocker. Again, going back to fraud detection, imagine an agent trying to detect fraud, but the transaction history needs is in cold storage that takes, 12 hours to retrieve. At that point,
Mm,
the fraud transaction has already cleared. That's another big piece of the system that's got to be, forethought. Lastly, I would say is fragmentation. So critical data often lives in disparate systems that don't talk to each other. So an agent trying to assess customer risk might need data from the CRM, the transaction system, and
yeah.
support tickets. But if that data is siloed, then and can't be accessed together, then the agent is making decisions with incomplete data. And while these weren't deal breakers for traditional analytics, for agentic AI, they're blockers, right? You can't really move forward without
Yeah.
access to the data being together, or at least readable, right? And then the quality of the data.
And talking about siloed information, how do you think AI would perform in the cryptocurrency space? Because is there any adoption right now of AI in crypto?
That is, that's an interesting question. I really have not. I'm sure
Yeah,
that
because I
there
know the
is.
blockchain is such that you can't access data. So I'm not sure. I don't know how the agentic AI can perform in that space, to be honest.
I think it's definitely possible, right? If you look at how AI accesses information
Mm,
on the back end, like underneath, it is a lot of different calls out to different data sources.
yeah.
As long as that data can be accessed in a fast modern way, such as, API, like real-time APIs and things like that, then
Okay.
it can still do the work necessary. My thought is that crypto, with being as advanced as it is and how new it is, this is probably an area where the AI would be able to do whatever sort of like querying that it needs. There would just
Yeah.
need to be probably like a semantic layer that helps it to understand like how all of the different like blockchain pieces fit together and provide that additional like metadata context.
Yeah. I was curious because at some point I needed to, so I used to be an auditor before now. And at some point we needed to audit like a crypto firm, and there are a lot of blockers, and it just, a lot of things requires keys and tokens to get into those systems. So thinking about, we were talking about the blockers that the agentic AIs will face if we have siloed systems, and that's came to mind. I'm like, okay, how would that work in a crypto environment? But
Yeah, and I think
I'm sure people are adapting AI for crypto
yeah.
anyways. It's because it's evolving really fast. We don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any area where AI is not touching. There's just certain areas that are moving faster, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So I know you've seen firsthand how messy enterprise data environments can be, because you said something that the AI is only as good as the data you can get from it. So why isn't simply having more data enough when AI agents need to make real-time decisions?
Yeah, so having lots of data is definitely key to success in AI, but that alone is not enough. So more
Mm,
data without quality just means more noise for the agent to filter through. And
okay.
AI agents are not immune to garbage in, garbage out, right? I think we've all seen AI confidently make bad,
Hallucinating.
exactly.
Yeah.
If the data is bad, then it's going to give bad results. And they do it fast and at scale, right? More data without accessibility is essentially invisible data. So, as I
Correct.
mentioned in a previous question, if historical transactions are sitting in cold storage that has a 12-hour rehydration time, that data doesn't exist as far as the agent is concerned. When it needs that context to make a real time decision, it's not able to get it. And so it's working with an incomplete picture. And more data
Okay.
without context, without the metadata explaining what the fields mean, without the lineage showing where the data originated, means the agent might be misinterpreting what it's seeing. Is this revenue number in US dollars or is it in euros, right? Without that context, then the agent is just guessing. So I would
Okay.
say, honestly, like data quantity is table stakes at this point. Data quality, accessibility, context is what's going to actually determine whether or not your agents are fast decision engines or whether they're just hallucinating with more inputs.
Okay. So in your experience, what's the most impressive thing you've seen an agent do in a real-time environment?
So, this is actually something that came up recently with a
Okay.
customer. They were able to use one of our AI agents to help solve um, an incident that was happening in real time. So
Okay.
there was a service that had gone down, and no one was able to figure out where they needed to look, where they needed to make changes on the back end. And the agent, with just, given some slight details on what was happening, was able to search all of the different pieces of data and where they were coming in from and determine where the outage was happening. And so, in the time span before the AI agent was brought into the problem, folks had been
Yeah.
looking at it for 2 hours and hadn't been able to figure out anything. Once someone had the idea of bringing in the AI agent, the problem was solved within 5 minutes and everyone was able to
Wow.
go to sleep. Yeah, so
That's
there are
amazing.
really powerful things happening with AI and with, agentic AI in terms of, solving real customer problems, real customer needs, and impacting, end user experiences.
Was the AI agent tailored for that particular use case, or was it just a generic one from one of the companies you guys just deployed for that situation?
It was a generic one that we've also given additional context.
Training.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so it wasn't any sort of like custom AI that we have trained. We've mostly just been using foundational models and then providing additional context for, whatever the actual product is. But yeah.
Okay. I know a lot of our listeners are like startup founders, others are like huge business people that are looking to adopt AI. So for these people that have this many data sets sitting in their file cabinets, in their cloud and whatnot, what's the first step into adopting agentic AI? Like if they come to you like, Ashley, we need to adopt AI to make our work faster and better. What's the starting point for them and like what's the timeline you typically give for such adoption phase?
Yeah, so the first place to start is going to be with auditing your current systems. As I
Okay.
mentioned before, data is the fuel for AI. So you've got to take a look at where all of your data is sitting today. Is it sitting in separate siloed systems? If it's co-located, is it available via an API? Is there a way for the AI to talk to it? All of these questions will really inform what the actual effort's going to be like to build out that proper data foundation. I think for a company or startup that is starting with all of their data, co-located in one space, but
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily have the right AI access, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a data infrastructure problem they can address in a matter of a few weeks. If this
Oh,
is a more legacy company and they've got, like you said, they've got their data in file cabinets and things like that, or they've got these much older legacy systems that were just not built for modern use cases, then you're looking at really more of a re-architecting of your data foundation. And that's something that can definitely take months, right? It's not
sure.
easy to move data around. It's not cheap. So it's something that will take some planning. But definitely where you want to start is with identifying what your data sources look like. How ready are they for agentic systems to be querying them when,
Okay.
these legacy systems may have been looking at maybe a few heavy queries a day, but these AI agents are making, potentially hundreds of calls per minute. And that's just going to be a whole different
Mm.
kind of load on the system than was previously experienced.
Okay. Secondly, is there like a skill of company you work with in terms of deploying these agents, or can you just deploy it in any type of enterprise, be it very small business to like super huge companies? Is there a particular skill that is a baseline for agentic adoption?
You said a particular skill set?
Yeah, not skill set. Like, is there a skill? Like, is how big does the company have to be, or can you before the company adopts AI agents, do they have to be super big, or can it be like mom and pop shops that can adopt these AI agents?
Yeah. So I would say any size company can adopt
Okay.
AI. You'll definitely want to have a lot of data, though. If your company is very
Okay.
new and doesn't have a lot of data and is still sort of acquiring that piece, then what you may find is that the AI agent is a little less predictable, right? But when it has more data to work off of, then it's truly
Yeah.
learning like the full scope of the work being done by that
Okay.
company, whether it's a small company or a large company. So the amount of data is definitely important. I would say that matters more so than the size of the company, because you could have a 5-person company that's got, petabytes and petabytes of data if they have built something that's just constantly generating data. I find that most companies have a ton of data. Whether or not they're
Sure.
actually keeping that data is often really where the variation comes in, right? You see a lot of companies throwing out data or sampling their data in order to manage costs.
Okay.
And actually, that's exactly where the company I work for, Hydrolix, comes in. We're a data platform, and we specialize in storing petabytes and petabytes of data while also keeping it hot, right? We're not sending it to cold storage. It's
Okay.
easily queryable, even your oldest historical data, so that and we're doing this at a fraction of the cost so that customers aren't having to choose between keeping all of their data and, sampling and getting rid of data that they may have a need for.
Nice. I like the fact that you talked about your company and what your company is doing. Can you like explore more, expand more on the different plans that are available to the different size companies? So I
Okay.
understand you're the senior product manager at the innovation labs at Hydrolix. So what does that role entail? What's like your day to day there in context of all we've been talking about?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm the senior product manager for our innovations lab at Hydrolix. What that means is our innovation lab is our engineering team that does a
Hmm.
lot of our non-platform work. So things outside of our core platform, it's a lot of AI projects. So we have built an anomaly detection system that is focused on detecting anomalies within CDN data infrastructure. We
Okay.
have built out our MCP server, which, MCP is one of the biggest protocols sort of taking over the AI space. Model context protocol, it allows for you to connect any um, tools, databases, things like that to your
Yeah.
AI. So a lot of the times these data systems that we've been talking about, in order to connect them to AI, you're using a protocol like MCP, and that is something that my team at Hydrolix works on.
Okay.
Additionally, we work in the space of external ecosystem. So being able to bring your hydraulics data to wherever you like to interact with your data today, whether it be Splunk, Snowflake, Spark, really building out sort of a rich ecosystem for hydraulics data.
Wow. That's a lot of work. And in terms of team management, how big is a team that you manage?
Yeah, so the team that I work with is about 13 engineers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely a good sized
Huge.
team. It's an area that we're really focused on in the company because, as our
Mm,
talk today has highlighted, AI is not going away. And so
mm-mm,
we've got a team of folks, focused on, again, another piece we've talked about, upskilling, leveling up their skills so that
mm.
they are able to build out, AI products and stay ahead of the curve as we start to get requests from our customers to integrate more AI into our products, which we definitely are. So,
And I understand that having worked across products, engineering, and operations, how do you think teams should balance speed with observability and control when AI agents are acting on behalf of live financial data?
so, in my experience working across product, engineering, ops, I've seen this pattern repeatedly, right? New
Mm,
shiny technology emerges and everyone sprints towards building a new product or a new demo. And
yeah.
things like observability and governance get bolted on later, maybe, right? Sometimes they just don't even ever happen. AI in financial services, that will get you impressive demos, but that's not going to get you production systems. So how do you actually
Mm,
balance, that speed with control? I think there's a few things to consider.
okay.
You've got to build in observability from day one, not as a feature, but as actual architecture of the product that you're building. Every agent decision needs to be traceable. We need to be able to tell what data did it see, what AI model was it running, what was its confidence level, anything that would have changed the outcome. If you
Mm-hmm.
can't answer any of those questions after the fact, then you're definitely not production ready. You're not ready to ship. Second is human override. So the agent should be able to learn from corrections and not just execute blindly. When a compliance officer says, that decision was wrong, it needs to be able
Yeah.
to feed that back into the system and have the AI system actually learn from that and make changes going forward. Third, and probably last, is, tiering your autonomy based on risk. Not every decision
Mm-hmm.
needs the same level of oversight. An agent
Mm,
that's just summarizing a report can run autonomously and, there's very low risk of harm there. But if you've
yeah.
got an agent that's executing large trades, then you definitely want to have approval gates, right? So you match the control that you implement to the stakes of the actual action that's happening. And so
Okay.
going
That makes
back to kind of those three teams, product just wants to ship fast, engineering wants to build it right, and operations wants to sleep at night. So the balance comes from getting all three of those teams in the room early and agreeing
mm,
that observability and building that into the product is not preventing speed. It's actually what makes the speed sustainable. Because as
yeah.
soon as you have one unexplainable decision that harms a customer, all of the time spent on observability work will seem like nothing in comparison to trying to get out of that.
Sure.
Speed definitely matters for a competitive advantage. And, we talked about a little bit about competitive advantage and how intense that's getting before, but especially for financial services, if you can't explain it, you shouldn't be shipping it, point blank.
In terms of observability, would you reckon it's worthwhile to have like an agent's project manager that would be focused on that part of the work to ensure that's being computed real time?
Yeah, I would say so. Like
Okay.
observability in the AI space
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so new, I think is like constantly changing, right? There's
Yeah.
constantly new regulations coming out. There's constantly new rules based on like various states or various countries. And so having someone that is paying attention to all of these different requirements and then turning that back into requirements for the product in terms of the observability, I think is something that will become more and more crucial, right?
Okay.
Observability has never really been the most exciting topic that folks want to focus on, but we've
Yeah.
also never been in a situation where we have our technology making decisions for us autonomously. So we'll definitely need to see a shift in that way.
And let's talk about the money parts. I know that cost is always
Yeah.
part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So, drawing from your FinOps and cloud costs optimization experience, where do teams tend to misjudge the cost of building data infrastructure that can actually support these agentic systems?
Yeah, so cost is absolutely one of the areas where AI initiatives can stall out from the beginning. So it's definitely an important one to get into. And from a
Yeah.
FinOps perspectives, I see teams misjudging costs in a couple of different ways. So first is sort of the most obvious one, it's the infrastructure gap. Teams assume they can just use their existing data systems as is, and as we've
Mm.
discussed, they will soon find out that that's most likely not possible, right? Those systems were built for human reports, human usage, not AI agents. And once they
Yeah.
realize the need for real time access and the need for raw granular data instead of sample data, the cost estimates balloon. Suddenly, you're not just adding an AI layer, you're re architecting your entire data foundation. Second is the compute math, which sounds a little weird, so I'll explain that.
Okay.
Traditional AI might cost a fraction of a cent for inference. That's more of your like classic chatbots, right? But
Yes.
agentic systems are fundamentally different. You might have 10 or 15 model calls per task, each one querying data, validating that data, making decisions. And then, you know, each of those can run 10 cents to a dollar per decision cycle. If you multiply
Okay.
that by thousands of daily decisions, you're going to end up with a bill that is frightening to look at, you know. And third, I would say third, the thing that I feel like really surprises teams, but probably
Mm.
shouldn't, is the hidden operational costs.
Okay.
Monitoring, debugging, governance tooling, audit trail storage. AI talent, right, to own these new products, that the infrastructure is just the tip of the iceberg. The integration work and the compliance overhead, all of those things are what can really blow up a budget. And, you know, kind of going back to Hydrolix, that's exactly why we built Hydrolix the way we did. Low latency, raw, granular data retention with compression that drops storage costs dramatically because we feel teams shouldn't have to choose between keeping all of their data and staying within budget. And it's these sort of budget trade-offs that can often, you know, kill an AI initiative before it has the chance to scale.
That makes sense. And I know in terms of what we talked about earlier, that's regulation and compliance. To avoid latency, I know latency means delay, to avoid delay in the process, do you get the compliance in terms of your licenses and stuff before building the AI, or how does it work really? Because these AI models are being pushed out very quickly. So how does it work in terms of regulation and compliance?
Yeah, so regulation and compliance will vary a lot depending on the like depending on what line of business that you're in.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
now, the regulation around the areas that Hydraulics focuses in, which is a lot of CDN data, security data, even
Mm.
from financial companies, there's a lot less regulation around those. And
Okay.
so we haven't yet had to go into doing full audits around our AI capabilities. But from what I've
Okay.
seen in the in the finance world, it's completely the opposite, right? There's the long-standing regulations that have been around, and we're seeing those quickly being updated so that they can apply to the AI work that is happening now. And so that's kind of why I say one of the first things you'll want to do if you're looking into building out agentic AI is doing an audit of your current
Current
system,
systems.
right? Yeah. Figuring out where you're at today, figuring out what needs to change. And
Hmm.
I would add in, while you're doing that audit of the data foundation, do an audit of how you plan to do governance, right? How you plan to do auditability. Define those things ahead of when you're getting started so that you're building that directly into the system.
That makes so much sense. And I like the fact that you're not using so many technical terms. Yeah, which you have to because these are the things you use, but the way you've explained it makes it very easy for me to grasp. And I hope our audience are gonna grasp it. But I'll make sure to leave a lot of descriptions so we're not get lost in translation. So for
Yeah.
teams building today, especially in financial services, what core data capabilities do you believe are essential if agentic AI is going to deliver long-term results rather than the short-lived demos we talked about earlier?
Yeah. So if I had to distill everything we've talked about today into
Yeah.
what really matters for long-term success, I think it comes down to a few non-negotiables, which hopefully should all sound very familiar right now.
Yeah.
First is that raw granular data, including historical data. Sample data might work for a demo, but in production, those gaps quickly become blind spots. And worse,
Mm.
actually, sample data can perpetuate biases that existed in whatever subset of the data you kept. And specifically for financial services where you've got patterns shifting quickly, edge cases are huge, you need to have that complete picture of the data. So
Okay.
first, raw granular data. Second, rich metadata and data lineage. Metadata as
What
a
is that?
concept has been around for forever, but
Mhm.
traditional systems, legacy systems, have been notoriously bad at it. So if your agent doesn't know whether a revenue field, is US dollars or euros, then it's making a decision on ambiguous information or, totally taking a guess, essentially.
Okay.
And lineage, the second part of that, understanding where data originated, gives the agent that context that helps it
Mm.
know how much to trust the data that it's seeing. If it can tell where that data is coming from, then it will place more confidence in that piece of data. And I don't
Oh,
really see data lineage being discussed a lot, but I think it's super essential, especially for agentic AI. Third point is low latency real time access. I've said it once, I'll say it again. It is foundational, right? Data
mm.
that cannot be quickly accessed, it doesn't exist to the agent. It might as well be invisible. These mechanisms that supported monthly human reports are not
Yeah.
going to be supporting agents making hundreds of decisions per minute in the same way, not at least without some work or some improvements made to them.
Okay.
And lastly, I'll add governance infrastructure built in from the start. So audit trails, explainability, override capabilities. Without these, you might move a lot faster and get to market faster. But as soon as you run into the first issue where either a customer or a regulator is asking how that decision was made, then you're going to be completely stalled. So,
Mm.
without any of the above, any team can impress with a prototype, but the ones who win are the ones who are getting this data foundation and governance right. And I would say for teams starting on this journey today, like I mentioned before, audit your data capabilities before you write a single line of code. Audit how your governance needs to happen in order to comply with regulations, and that assessment will tell you how much work needs to go into building out these systems, and it'll tell you whether or not you're building for long-term success or whether or not this is just going to be another demo that looks really cool, but takes forever to actually turn into production.
I feel like I've learned so much. I feel like I can go out there and start coding and start bringing so many agents together because I've
Yeah,
learned a whole lot. But I know we
I've
only
coded.
scratch. But I know we only scratch the surface because we need to have like a second segment where we just go deeper. But yes, I've learned a lot, and thank you so much for explaining these in like human terms, not in AI
Yeah,
terms.
absolutely.
So that brings us to the second part of the segment, which is the firecracker round. So this is me just hitting you with a bunch of questions to affirm that you're human, you're not AI.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. So what motivates you to keep working with on complex systems? Like, do you ever get tired or bogged down? Like, oh, I'm not doing this. What's that inherent
Yeah.
motivation for you to keep going?
That's actually a really great question because when I was thinking about it, I realized I have mostly worked on complex systems in my career. So there must be something that I love about it. And when I think about it further, I think it comes down to the puzzle of it. It
Okay.
feels like these systems, these complex systems are never fully solved, right? There's always another layer, there's another edge case, there's another customer problem you haven't thought of or anticipated. And I really enjoy the feeling of not understanding something, putting in all of the research to understanding it, and
Mm,
then feeling like I've uncovered, a whole new dimension. Kind of like you with this podcast today on Agentic AI, it's always fun to keep learning, and
yes,
I feel like working on complex things, I like to think it keeps my brain young because I'm constantly learning, and it's really the only
definitely.
way to stay sharp in this tech space.
That's really nice. So, what's one career lesson you learned the hard way?
Yeah, I hate to even my product managers are gonna feel me on this one. So, early on in my career when I was managing my first product, it was an edge
Yeah.
streaming API. I had
Okay.
a team of 1 engineer, and I was so eager to prove myself as a product manager because I had just become one, and so I signed
Okay.
up for this giant roadmap of features that we were gonna deliver, and I completely over committed, and
Oh.
we started missing deadlines. The engineers started getting really stressed and burned out. And, the result of that was that our team looked bad, right? At the end of the day. And that was because I hadn't really put any thought into like how all of this work was actually going to get done. I just wanted to say yes to everything. And so
Mm,
the lesson I learned from that is the strength of being a product manager comes in actually being able to say no, right? Being able to actually evaluate whether a customer request that's coming in or being able to evaluate whether a feature request that's coming in is actually going to positively impact the product vision, the business vision, all of that. And, if you're going to be saying yes to something, then you've got to
mm,
say no to something else to keep that balance. And I found that it's a lot easier as a product manager once you come to that realization that your job isn't just to say yes to everything. It's actually
yeah.
to sit back and strategically think about what is actually a good fit. So it was a good lesson to learn like in my first year of being a product manager, but it was definitely rough.
I mean, definitely, because when you're managing a project or whatever, you have to think about it end to end. But
Yeah.
because you delved into it and you just wanted to prove to yourself or prove to the team that well, you can handle it, you learn the hard
Yeah.
way. Well, I've
Yeah.
also learned a lesson. I also learned a lesson in my work. I was working on 2 different audit engagements at the time, and I was
Mhm.
trying to prove to my managers that oh, I can do it, I can do it. I got burnt out on that. I got sick.
Yeah.
got burnt out,
Oh no.
and I learned firsthand that I needed to like divide my time properly and say, okay, I can't work
Mhm.
with you today. I'm working on this job. I'll work with you tomorrow. Saying that hard no, it sounds difficult at the start, but it's also a way of protecting yourself and your boundary. That way you can do your deep work and give your best value. Otherwise, you're just going to overstretch yourself and you just like
Yeah. Exactly. You do your best work when you actually start to put, some boundaries around what you can and
Yeah.
can't do. That's the thing. Yeah.
So what does success look like for you outside of work, outside of going to markets?
Honestly, very simple for me. I
Okay.
would say it's about presence, like being present
Mm.
and being grateful. When I am able to spend a lot of my time just being able to be like present in everything that I have,
Yeah.
whether it's being able to spend time with my pets. I have two cats and a dog, and I'm
Oh.
absolutely obsessed with them. Being able to sit and be present with them,
Yeah.
that is success to me. Being able to travel and go on a long trip and completely unplug from work and just be present in wherever I'm traveling, that's
Yeah.
success for me. Being able to go out to dinner with friends and just be really present and enjoying their company, that's success
Yeah.
for me. I would say, yeah, just being able to be present and grateful for all that I have, the folks in my life, and yeah.
I like the fact that you didn't put a money price on it because most people call success, oh, I have 10 million pounds in my account or $1 billion in my account. But for you, it's more of the relational side because I think you're already bogged down at work with AI,
Yeah,
artificial intelligence, and you just
literally.
want to like unplug when you get home. So I like
Yeah.
that about you. So what would you say so far is your best and worst investment deals? This could be like in terms of like personal finance or whatever you did at work. Your best and worst investments moments or deals.
I would say I'm not a super sophisticated investor in like the traditional sense. I've got a person who does that for me because that's me being smart.
Yeah.
Don't leave it to me. Leave it to the professionals.
Focus focus on your strengths and
Exactly.
leave the
Exactly.
rest.
But I would say an investment I've made in myself and my career has been moving into the startup world. So when I
Okay.
started out of college, I had this thought of like, I've got to work for giant companies. That's the only place to be. Like, nothing matters unless you're at like a, really established,
Google.
and, after a few years at big companies like that, I found myself getting a little bored, right? Feeling like I wasn't actually really solving anything. Things were already solved and I was just sort of there, it didn't feel very fulfilling.
Mm.
So I made the leap into startups and, companies that are less than 1,000 people. Hydrolix is at about 200 people now, which is one of the smaller companies I've been at. And I feel like that has paid off largely, right? And opportunities, like, for example, being here today and getting to talk with you, these are opportunities I would have never had at a larger company, where it's harder to get your foot in the door. So I would say that's the best investment I've made for myself is taking that plunge into startups. And worst investment, probably all of the subscription services that I subscribed to and never canceled. So just so many 9.99 charges that never stop.
All the free trials you forgot to cancel on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I can relate with the investment part because when I started my career, I started with like a startup. It was not a startup, but it had a startup culture. It was a very big fintech company in Nigeria, but it had a startup culture. So I could see everything end to end. And sitting in the finance team, I was able to see everything, all the transactions coming and out. Our CFO was gracious enough. She allowed me to move around different teams. So I learned to work faster. By the time I now
Yeah,
moved into the big four, where I had to specialize, it's like, oh, I'm grateful for the fact that I trained in this company because in the big four or in the bigger companies, you tend to specialize and they just put you in a box and you're just
yeah,
there
yeah,
for as long as it takes because you get very good at doing what you're doing and like there's no point moving to a different department. Just stay there. You're good there.
right. Yeah.
That makes sense. So how do you unwind and reset? I know you said you like to take like long trips. So how do you unwind and reset when work gets so intense?
Yeah, work definitely does get intense.
Yeah.
So I've definitely gotta have my ways to reset on the daily, right? That isn't just taking trips. And for
Yeah.
me, that is my pets. I'm a huge
Mm,
animal lover. I've always been, since I was a kid, I feel my most sort of like zen when I'm
yeah.
around animals. And
Mm-hmm.
so at home, I've got 2 cats and a dog, and they're actually like all right behind me. And so I can like hear them snoring actually.
They're well behaved, so they're not bothering you. They're just sleeping and
Yeah,
having a
no.
chill time.
Um, Honestly, for me, if I can walk away from my computer and go snuggle with them or pet them for 5 minutes, it helps to kind of stop all of the spinning in my brain, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's oftentimes enough of a reset. And then, of course, when you need that longer reset, when work is just getting crazy, then, for me, it's travel, right? So I've got trips planned for this year. My husband and I are
Oh,
going to do a 2-week Europe vacation later this year. We're going to Jamaica with my family. So I'm really,
oh, nice.
really looking forward to those trips. And those will be sort of the big reset in between playing with my cats and dog.
Yeah, I feel like once you have like something planned, like a trip or an
Yeah,
event or something, it just keeps you going, keeps you
it
enthusiastic.
does.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
at least you can say, okay, let me shop for my trip. Let me go get
Mhm.
something. Oh, I need this for this. I need to get this fit for this event because you have it planned out. But if you don't have it planned out, you just be like, what's there?
Yeah. Yeah. Planning something really gives you things to look forward to, especially when work gets a little crazy.
Definitely. Ashley, it's been an amazing time having you on the pod. Like I've learned so much and I feel like I've not done milking you yet. So we need to have another session.
Yeah, we
But how
do.
can we reach you? Because definitely people want to get you to you. So your socials, websites, how can we get you to you?
Yeah, best place to find me is LinkedIn. Search Ashley Vassell. I'm the senior product manager at Hydrolix. I'd love to connect with anyone listening today on, the challenges that we've talked about, whether it's building agentic AI systems or wrestling with data infrastructure, or you just want to geek out on complex distributed systems. And I'll do a little plug, if your organization is exploring how to get your data ready for AI and AI agents, check out Hydrolix at hydrolix.io. We are solving that exact problem, and we'd love to hear from you.
Very nice. I'll make sure to leave the links in the description so that you can just go right there and get you to you. But from me to
Awesome.
you, thank you so much, Ashley, for being on the pod today. It's been an honor having you today.
Yeah, it's been so fun. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
And there we have it, guys. We've had such a powerful conversation with Ashley. If there's one key takeaway I would say from this session, it would be that agentic AI is not just about smarter models, it's about stronger foundations. And Ashley made sure to hammer on that bit of it. So without the right data infrastructure, without speed or scalability, even the most advanced systems would struggle to create real impacts. Ashley, thank you again for breaking this down so clearly and practically. And so if you found value in this episode, make sure to share it with a colleague, share it with a friend, and leave us a review in the comments and let's see. And don't forget to subscribe on our channels. We are everywhere on YouTube, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Everywhere you watch your favorite podcast, you can always check out the Bricks and Banks podcast there. So we come your way next week. Let's continue to turn knowledge into action and bricks into banks. This has been Bricks and Banks, and this is me signing out.